Well, welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Tanner O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at Action Coach in Central Texas. And today I'm sitting down with my guest, Mark Turk, who is the founder and executive director of Beat for Beat. So excited to be jumping in, having some conversation, especially when it comes to this business side of nonprofit and things like that as it comes to building organizations. So first and foremost, Mark, I just want to say thank you for taking a little bit of time to be here. Why don't we just start with a little bit of background? Give us the 10,000-foot view. Tell us about you. Who is Mark? And then tell us about the organization. Tell us about B for B.
Yeah, dude, this is great. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, who is Mark? Mark is a musician, you know, to the core. And every business venture, every job was always distracted by music, playing music. So at some point, I did get a degree, a business degree from college. And at some point, I was like, hey, there's no point in like just quitting jobs so I can go take a cool gig. Like, I should just do music as my career. And so it's easier said than done, because there's not like a job that just hires musicians. It's a gig economy for musicians.
Mhm.
So I did a bunch of different things. I fell into teaching. A lot of musicians are teachers. And I picked up a gig where I was teaching at a low income school, a bunch of low income students, rock band class, and I just fell in love with it. The idea that my skills could help these kids, these at risk youth, was just mind boggling to me. Um, and I did a good enough job where I was getting referrals from other schools. So the referrals turned into more gigs, which then turned into like hiring employees, which turns into an organization. You really get the feel of being organized when you're kind of just when this is coming out of nowhere. You're like, oh, all of a sudden I'm doing payroll and I'm getting insurance. So you get organized, and yeah, it took off from there, and I've been doing this for about 10 years.
Wow, that's amazing. So tell me a little bit more about, the formation or the foundation of Beat for Beat. Why go this direction? Why, getting into this, maybe there's a part of the story that we haven't uncovered yet. But why a nonprofit organization versus, creating something that's just a for-profit entity that you own and hires people and all that kind of stuff? Why go this direction? Tell me a little bit more about that formation.
Yeah, well, yeah, and originally it was a for-profit. Originally I just went down to I guess the county office and got a DBA and just, you know, went rolling with it. But I saw that well, a couple of things. One, there's not much money. Uh, I couldn't charge high fees for low income people, right? That's kind of the problem, right? They don't have money. So the for-profit part of it just didn't really make sense. There's plenty of grant programs, government grant programs that require you to be a nonprofit. Um, so that made sense. And being in music, and I'm in Austin, which is a big music town. I know so many people have extra instruments and stuff that can be donated. And just to do it like the right way, be a nonprofit, people can give you donations, you can give them write-offs. And so it just kind of like made sense. Like, this is a nonprofit, the way this is going. And so what did he do? You find a lawyer and you pay them, and they say, fill this out, here's your documents, here's your this and that, and you're off and running.
I love it. So if I'm kind of putting the pieces together, it really was about the community you wanted to serve, and in order to serve that community in the best way possible, it turned into this pretty cool organization that you continue to build and grow. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
So tell me, or tell all of us a little bit more on how this process works. So, I've done a little bit of research. I've looked at different things. Looks like it's in schools, things like that. Is it beyond that? Kind of walk us through what this looks like for both the students and just kind of like operationally. How do y'all get engaged with different parts of the community?
Yeah, so you nailed it. The nonprofit was kind of served as like, what is the necessary thing to do to serve the community? Because that's what a nonprofit's there to do, serve the community. So when we looked at operations, and of course it's you try things out for years. Some things work, some things don't. But what really worked for us was hiring musicians to go to the students. Um,
Mm.
Low income family students have transportation issues, right? And if anybody, uh, if you're in a town like Austin that doesn't have the greatest bus transit system, it takes forever to get anywhere. So let's go to them. Let's instead of getting 20 people to come to one, let's send one person to 20 people. So that was kind of like a big part of it. Like let's just get right to them, and then so basically, we hire like I said, the local musicians who are themselves putting a career together in music or studio or acting or some kind of something in the arts, which gives them a flexible schedule. And we find that most musicians aren't really working between the hours of 3 and 6, which is the after school time. So it made sense to do it then too. So it was kind of like serving the needs of the musicians and the students to put it together. And then as far as, our curriculum, what we really found the best thing to do was not to kind of like feed our agenda to them, to the students, but to take it from them, take their words, take what's in their head. What are you listening to? What do you like? And what's going to spark your interest? So we build around that, which is not the easiest way to do it. It would certainly be easier to open a book and say, this is what we're going to learn today. But for people who were like forced as children to take piano lessons, that doesn't always work, right? So we want these kids to love music. And if they're listening to, I don't know who kids are listening to. Somebody with a lot of face tattoos, but that's who we're going to teach. We're going to teach them that the fundamentals of music are the same no matter what genre. And from years past, it's all the same fundamental of music. It's just how do we wrap it and deliver it in a way that these kids are going to enjoy it. And we find that what it does is that gets them attending classes regularly, that they're building friendships. They want to be there at the school for our class, so they've got to be in school and they've got to keep their grades up and stuff. So we just really kind of saw like you just listen. What's working here? What do they want? Just taking feedback from the customer essentially, and building our product around them.
I love that. Absolutely love that. So, how do you how do you manage that? How do you manage the curriculum being kind of guided by what they want versus opening up books saying this is what it's going to be? How do you manage that on kind of the business side of things and making sure that it's consistent? Like what does that look like? How have you figured out how to manage it at this point?
Well, I would say to answer your question generally, like you never figure it out. It's a work in progress always, right? But we do learn lessons. So over the years, I've really like I said, I've done this like 10 years. So I've codified like a lot of my best practices and put them into a training program for our instructors. Because I know that there's a through line from class to class, even though they're all kind of individuals, and every class does look different. There are through lines, and I can like coach what those through lines are.
Mm.
And then you also kind of lead the students uh to like the best place. You know, if some kid like wants to learn Beethoven or something, well, that's just not going to happen. But something like something simple in like the modern pop world is doable. So you could kind of guide them and you know direct, but
Yeah.
still kind of like ask leading questions to kind of get them there. Yeah. So you know it does take a little finesse.
I love it. All right, so let's shift gears a little bit. I want to ask, a couple questions around kind of the organization overall in terms of kind of like structure, how you run it and have built it over the last number of years, especially for just being like super fun here. I don't get an opportunity to chat with a whole lot of nonprofit organizations on the Spotlight series, so it opens up the door for some different types of questions to help others kind of
Yeah.
understand what you all go through, because it is different. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between traditional business and nonprofit, but there's also some differences. For one, you mentioned earlier, grants and different programs and things like that that can help with funding. So maybe talk just a little bit about what does the funding structure look like for y'all? Is it simply from like grants and government programs and being able to kind of tie those down? Do you have other ways where there's additional income coming in to help kind of offset the cost of operations? What does that look like for y'all?
Um, Gosh, I wish it just came from one source, but it does not. um, so we use different revenue streams, and you can kind of block it into three. You have like government grant funding. You have like the public, which could be like an individual donor or like a family foundation or trust, and then you have fees that you could charge. So we do all three of those, um, and from year to year, it does shift. You know, when I started, we were definitely able to charge more fees for services. But you know, as the economy it kind of goes, so does like the last items on your on the government's line item list, and the arts and after school funding, you know, that's there on the bottom. So uh the public, you know, individual donors and foundations, business sponsors come in, and also there's been more, they have had more like arts funding has kind of stepped up since I started like 10 years ago. There's just been more of them,
Yeah.
you know, more organizations saying like, oh, hey, the arts are in trouble, you know, so let's go and take care of, especially after the pandemic, let's take care of the organizations that have been doing the work so they don't go away.
Hmm.
So we've been fortunate, like we were fortunate to have those different grant programs come through to kind of keep us going. Yeah.
So have you had to employ grant writers to really go after that? Are you the grant writer? Like, how is that journey gone? Because I know that there's a whole skill set in knowing how to properly go after grants, find them, be able to write properly to get them accepted, things like that. So how has that looked for you?
It's a journey. It's been a journey. I mean, when you start a nonprofit by yourself, you do everything, right? You're the grant writer, you're the janitor, right? You're in charge of everything. So I did do it a lot on my own, and then you can hire grant writers for like you know gigs, grant writers essentially. Like we have someone that's worked for us for years that writes grants for musicians for the city of Austin, a very specific niche.
Mm.
And you know and he'll take we'll add in his fee into the grant award.
Ah,
So we've done that, and then but right at this point we do have like a full-time person that's doing grant, like managing grants for us at this time.
Very
But
cool.
yeah, I had to learn to write, you know, and it's tricky. You got to write. You have to have. You have to. I think the biggest learning curve is writing for your audience. Who's
Yep.
your audience? Are you talking to a family foundation that really loves the arts? Are you talking to a government bureaucrat who's looking for like cold hard facts? You know,
Does it check this box, this box, this box, this
yeah,
box?
I mean, literally, when you write a government grant, they're just trying to, somebody's out there just trying to check the boxes. But when you're appealing to like someone who's, you know, whose passion is the arts, like you really got to pull those heartstrings
Yeah.
to let them understand, you know, the effect that you're having in the community. So yeah,
Oh, that's
different
it.
types of writing.
Yeah, it's a it's a phenomenal segue. I always love asking a few questions around marketing, and it's an area that for most organizations and businesses out there, it's vital, but isn't always the one that everyone just kind of gravitates to and says, "I understand and know how to do this very well." So there's a lot of lessons learned, kind of what's worked, what hasn't worked, things like that. And you just mentioned, kind of once, like knowing your audience, being able to communicate with the audience here. So I'll just kind of ask this in two ways because I know that there's in your world there's a little bit of there's the marketing for who you're actually serving, and then there's like the marketing for we got to fund this thing. So talk to me through kind of what has been your philosophy. How do you get the word out there about what y'all do, kind of from both of those angles?
Yeah, yeah, the marketing is tricky because we have multiple audiences. You know, we do marketing if we go to a school, like once we market to a school and the school brings us in, then we're marketing to the students and the parents, right? The job hasn't stopped. Um, and for me, I have used the same marketing philosophy since I was in bands, you know, uh, a catchy name, catchy flyers, catchy posters, and put them where the people you need to see them can see them. So really kind of being tactical. It doesn't make sense to put, you know, flyers in a library if you'll never be having a music class in a library, right? It's quiet. So really kind of really just thinking about getting those getting views, right? At views or
Yep.
getting those impressions across to those folks. And I remember in my first band, you know, we would put up flyers. It was in a college town. We would put up flyers and all over campus, and you know, people that had never heard or seen us were like would tell us, "Oh, I've heard you're good." And I'm like, "Well, who'd you hear that from?" "Well, I don't know, but I've seen your flyers." There you
Uh,
go.
Can
You
I just
know?
say can I just say how much I love the fact that we're talking about flyers? I almost never get to talk about flyers anymore. But yeah, you know the audience, and you know especially in a school setting, if you've got like a confined area that people are walking around, they're a phenomenal tool. Absolutely love them.
We put flyers in schools. They walk by it and they see it. If they read it or not, when it comes around and I'm like, "Oh yeah, we're beat for beat. Have you heard of us?" "Yeah, I have. I don't know where, but I've heard of you." And if I've heard of you, then you must be good, right?
Oh, that's awesome. So how does that shift when you're going after, say, donations from the public and starting to, we talked a little bit about the grant writing side, making sure that you're speaking to the appropriate audience, things like that. But maybe kind of walk us through what the philosophy is to quote unquote market for that side for, bringing dollars in the door to be able to, fulfill the mission.
Yeah, well, so when you're yeah, the difference between going from like students and parents and schools over to like donors and foundations is you know, one is kind of like what you do, and the other one is like how well are you doing it? You know, so you know, when you talk government grants and that more bureaucracy stuff, you need a lot of statistics. You know, you need to tell them something through numbers a lot of the time. And And then when you're talking to like a family foundation, they want to hear stories, so and the stories are legit. Like, I have been in the classroom, I have seen the effects that we have on people's lives, and not just the students, but the musicians who come to me and say, "Dude, that was the best job I've ever had. Like, I can't believe you guys are paying me for this." You know? And those stories, they translate over to like, okay, this is an organization that's getting things done.
Mm.
But, if I and one of my first lessons was telling a heartstring story to like a group of people that were like all accountants. They didn't care. It's like, how much, does $1 affect one student? It's kind of like,
Mm.
okay. So you have to kind of find, craft your message around that.
Oh,
Yeah.
those are some good lessons there. I love that. So,
Yeah.
so before we shift over to some of our rapid fire questions, I got to ask about kind of vision for the future. As you look out for the next 3 to 5 years, what are you most excited about? What does the future look like for this organization? How does your role within the organization change as you kind of look forward into the next handful of years?
Well, I wish I had a crystal ball and can predict the future, but I could tell you what we want to do is we're definitely limited, like I said, going to the schools. You're working and usually in someone else's music room or someone else's classroom. So we definitely want to get to a place where we have our own music classrooms, music studios, and bring those kids in who are just fired up. I mean, we have had kids over the years that were wallflowers, no friends, no nothing. And by the end of like their career of high school, like they are in UIL band and choir, and they're just doing so much music, right? And like, we don't have a way to kind of further spark those fires because we're working in those confines. So having that outside place where we can transport kids, and we started this during the pandemic, and obviously a lot of things changed. So we want to get back to that where we're bringing kids into like a recording studio and really fostering their love for music. Yeah.
I love that. Any idea what it's going to take to be able to get you there?
Um. Yeah. Yeah, we're exploring some partnerships with recording studios, and it's going to take some probably legit capital investments to make that happen. So kind of another world for us to explore in this journey. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I know we'll talk about here in a few minutes on how folks that are watching this can get involved and get to know and learn about you and everything a little bit more. And at that time, definitely highly encourage anyone who is watching this that is interested and is fascinated, has a passion for music, and can come in and continue to give and help and things like that. Definitely an organization you want to reach out to. So once we get to that point, definitely make sure you reach out. But before we get to that, let's go through a few rapid fire questions. We've certainly covered a lot of ground in the conversation today. I always like to kind of pull things together with just a few rapid fire questions, pull out some wisdom nuggets for those out in the audience. Uh, so, as you look back at kind of your journey so far, what would you say for you has been your key to success? What traits or things have kind of been led to your success in your mind?
Um, I think I got a fortune cookie one time that said something like, "If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life." Um, that's partly true. I certainly do love what I do, but I still do work very hard. So, yeah, just having a passion, just kind of finding that passion, which I feel very fortunate that I have found that. But also realizing like you still gotta grind, you still gotta put in the hours, you still gotta work, you still gotta learn. I can remember getting my first like financial spreadsheet breakdown and was just totally confused. Like, what does all this mean? How did you get this? And kind of learning how to use that as a tool and how to read that. So there's just been so many things that I've had to keep learning, over the years, and keep grinding away. But certainly doing that towards your passion, it does make it a lot easier. Yeah.
I love that. It's I love the, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. That concept. I love it when you pair it with the context of like you can love something and it can still be hard. Uh,
Yeah.
there's a lot of that comes along with it. It just gets you through the hard parts much easier than if you're
They
doing something that you don't like.
they still call it work.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So for other, business leaders out there, maybe those that are, leading organizations today, if you could give them just one piece of advice based on kind of your experience, what piece of advice would you give them?
Yeah, as the business leader, and just kind of a broad terms, putting a lot of focus in on your business culture, just what it's like to work for your organization is huge. You're the one that sets that tone. The buck stops with you, all the decisions stop with you, so setting, for us, we're a nonprofit organization. We really want to have like what I call a culture of philanthropy, where we want to keep in mind that with every decision, with everything that we're doing, we're doing this for the good of our community, right? Um, and having that mindset, trickles down through all the people, and just kind of sets the tone. So yeah, I think a lot of people have worked for bosses they don't like, and it's like, yeah, work is hard. I have to make decisions. I have to fire people. There's all those things that are not fun, but I could try to do it with kindness and honesty, and just and that's what I want for beat too. There's
Mhm.
very much thinking about what do I want my organization to look like, to feel like, and then what can I do in like day-to-day decision makings, or just overall setting up the whole organization to make sure that that's trickles through all the way. Yeah.
That's fantastic. How about a book recommendation? Any books that come to mind that you would recommend to the audience? Does not have to be business if you don't want it to be. Um, And if it's difficult to
Like,
come up with one, I usually just like frame it up with what's a book that you've either currently reading or read most recently. But what would you say for a book recommendation?
well, I'm a parent of young kids, so reading is tough. But in the world of like leadership, Simon Sinek has written a couple of books that I really like, and I think the one of them is something about why. What is your why? I can't remember the exact title, but it has why, and also Leaders Eat Last. Um, I might be butchering the titles, but I really like his mindset. Uh, you don't have to agree with everything the guy says, but I like his mindset towards leadership and business. Yeah.
Fantastic. Those are excellent recommendations. And yes, I'll make sure they're written out and all that kind of stuff so people can find them afterwards. All right, one more rapid fire, and then we'll move into the kind of the closing stuff here. This one's just kind of fun. If you had to choose only one area in your organization that you could take a little bit of magic dust, just sprinkle it all over that one spot in the organization, and you wake up and it's like 10 times better tomorrow, where would you choose to put that magic dust?
Oh, yeah. That's the biggest challenge is the fundraising. You know, I'd sprinkle a lot of, I'd dump some of that dust on the fundraising. The fundraising climate has changed since the pandemic, and a lot of folks in this nonprofit world are kind of scrambling to figure out like what is the new climate. Yeah, so that's been tough for everyone in the nonprofit world.
Yeah, that I can understand.
Yeah.
So for those that are in the audience that want to learn more, that want to engage, that want to give back and assist where they possibly can, get involved, maybe even just connect with you and start a conversation or anything else like that. Where can we advise them to go for more information?
Yeah, I would go to our website, beatforbeat.org. Um, there's a contact page. I've tried to streamline that website so there's not a lot of information in there. You can find what you need to find. Um, but yeah, reach out to me. I am happy to have conversations with total strangers, and and if you feel like you may know a school or an area or a musician that might need a service like this, or if you have a guitar that's collecting dust in the back of your closet, you know, that's we can find something for that. Even if it's not for us, we've had people donate instruments that we don't need, and we give them to other organizations, you know, that might use it. So, you know, I'm happy to facilitate that. But yeah, I love this. Like I said, this is my passion, so I could talk about this all day.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to a phenomenal final question that I'll wrap us up on today, and that's simply what is most inspiring to you today?
Uh, you know what just like really gets me is when I see our instructors like really embracing our mission and really working with these kids and doing their best to make a difference in these kids' life. I mean that just really moves me because it's like it started with just me and I had that feeling, and to see that I've been able to like spread that, but not just that I do it. It's like, oh, we as humans can actually spread goodwill by just making it a practice to just be kind and help other people, that it does catch on. And yeah, that's the kind of thing that when you have really hard days, you know, you can just reflect on that and just say, but you know what, it's worth it. Yeah.
Amazing. Mark, I want to say thank you again for taking the time. This has been an absolute pleasure. I love that we got to dive a little bit deeper into kind of the nonprofit organizational side of things, which is a little bit different than most of my conversations. It's just so
Yeah.
much fun to connect those dots. So thank you so much for that. This has been a genuine pleasure.
Oh, it's great. Anytime.